Hey guys, Josh with Gold's Finishing. Today we're going to be doing a simple coffee table. I picked it up for free. We're going to see if we can turn it into something. Don't forget to hit subscribe, check out some of my other videos. Let's get to it. So the first thing I'm doing here is removing these sticky pads they had for some floor protectors. They put it over the top of some anti-skids, which I don't think they realized that yes, it's hard plastic, and sometimes it can scratch, but primarily if you have it sliding around, especially for a coffee table, if it moves any, it's just slightly. So removing those and having just the plastic pieces work just fine. Those are made primarily to um, slide, but not leave any rubber or any plastic marks to your floors. So that will work just fine, just taking those off, leaving the plastic. And then they had one doubled up here, so I'm taking that and removing it. Next, we are removing the bolts under the base so I can pull those legs off because we are doing multi-colors. So just to save me time, I'm pulling those legs out, and I can paint those gray and paint the base black and the top black without having to worry about run over or having to worry about taking the time to tape those all up. Okay, so now I'm running my nylon brush on the spindles to kind of clean them up. I found that the nylon brush wasn't quite getting in the tighter crevices, so now I'm using an actual wire brush, which my Dremel broke. So I'm just using a high-speed drill, holding the trigger down about halfway, cleaning that dust out with some nice mineral spirits. That way they can be finished with a nice coat of primer. So I use this piece of cardboard. I kind of rigged something up to where I can take the bolts on the ends of the spindles and insert them into the cardboard to kind of give myself a stand for them, and they hold really well. Um, I wish I would have had thicker cardboard so they didn't lean so much, but it held great. So that was kind of a new trick that I learned. Definitely something to try out for you guys. Now I'm using my 60 grit because the surface was pretty peeled. The finish came off very nicely, so I didn't have to go in with some citrus stripper or anything like that to remove it. Just some nice heavy 60 grit took it off just fine, as you can see. Then I proceeded to clean that surface off with some mineral spirits. I don't like to use a high grit sandpaper when applying paint because the best adhesion I can get, the better. My primer, if done right, along with the paint at the end, if I sand the first two layers down, I get a real good appearance and a real good feel. So I don't really have to worry about sanding up to 220. I'll usually end up finishing it off with about a 120 to a 180. Now I'm applying the primer. It looks white, but it is a gray base. It goes on pretty thick, so uh, if I really wanted to, I could thin it down, but for now it'll work just fine. I'll come in later with some sandpaper and rub that down to get it smooth. It's not, it's not a base coat or anything like that, so it's just a prime coat. You can sand those down pretty heavily, and still be okay. So that's what I'm doing, is just applying it thick, um, and on the edges not going so thick with it, but just to keep the sags out. Now I'm coming through and getting the edges with the black paint. What I don't show is I actually have a smaller brush to help get in those corners a little better and to smooth that out a little bit. Looks kind of funny using such a big brush, but it's what I had, so I was using it at the moment. Next I'm doing some touch-ups on the gray base for the legs. Now I'm going through and hand sanding everything with paper just to kind of give it a nice smooth edge and not too roughly, take that material off. Just a nice piece of paper will do it. Now I'm going through with my roller this time, actually, after everything's sanded down smoothly, and applying my final coat. Because of the primer, this actually laid on really nicely, so I didn't end up finding any spots I needed to do a third coat on, so the two coats did just fine. When you roll on, you want to make sure you do a couple things. So one, you want to make sure your surface is clean. Make sure you use a nice tack cloth to get that off, along with being smooth. Um, Make sure you always sand between coats, whether that's just using a piece of paper or something else that's really fine grit. The third thing is making sure that when you roll it on, you can brush or roll it on pretty quickly at first. I like to go slow, it just keeps more of the heavy bubbles out of it. But once you get done rolling it, what you'll see is most of your surface ends up having bubbles. So you want to make sure to get those out by re-rolling. You don't have to reapply any more paint. You just go back with the roller smoothly with no weight on it. Just roll it back and forth really slow, and you'll start to see those bubbles disappear. Alright, so that pretty much wraps up the project. Hope you guys liked it. If you have any questions or answers for anybody asking, or any new tips and tricks, don't forget to drop a comment in the comments box. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Check out some of my other videos. I'll be coming out with more real soon. So check in on that. Thank you guys.